Muchachos y muchachas, first, I'd like to offer my deepest apologies. Earlier, I was meaning to report on the earlier bust from today in Polk County, where 108 people were arrested in an operation called Operation March Sadness, where they were busting human exploiters. And unfortunately, I somehow got my articles confused and I was reporting from an older one. But with that being said, I'm human, I make mistakes, and so I'm willing to correct this one. And shout out to that viewer out there that commented and just let me know and was watching out for me. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much, because otherwise I would have had a really dank video out there with older information. But with that being said, it might be meant that I was looking at this older information because one of the Disney workers had the same position as one of them from last year, and that was a lifeguard. And then with that being said, there was an additional person, not necessarily from Disney, but he was still working at an amusement park that nobody is really talking about. And then ultimately, one of the most notable arrests, a retired judge that, again, I don't see in headlines whatsoever. What's being covered up here? But in coincidental timing, Disney workers and staffers, in about a couple days, they are staging a walkout. And you would think walkouts for fair wages or for fair treatment, something of that matter, you're right? No, they're walking out in protest of the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, in which aims to do away with indoctrinative curriculums in schools from kindergarten to third grade, pretty young people. And basically parents are saying, hey, we want we want to have a say in our kids' education. We don't want these curriculums, impending on their developmental stage. They shouldn't be learning about this. And they're protesting that. Yeah, stay right there. We're going to go through it. Thanks so much for watching this video. I would also like to thank my sponsor for this video, Ageless Glow. The fear of wrinkles sometimes stunt my self-confidence. I tried anti-aging serums, natural health supplements, and everything in between. Nothing seemed to work, and I was starting to lose hope. But that's when I was recommended this amazing new face serum, and my life has never been the same. My results with Age Glow have been nothing short of miraculous. Within no time, this product helped reduce the appearance of fine lines, return my skin's elasticity, and give my skin a more youthful glow. My skin is much more vibrant now and is tighter, firmer, and smoother than I've ever seen it in years. I highly recommend Glow with Natalie. Get it today for up to 38% off for a limited time by going to glowwithnatalie.com or clicking the link below. All right, so this was a bust of 108 people in Polk County. And this operation, once again named Operation March Sadness, detectives, they found solicitations online. They could be from websites that were reminiscent of back pages or from escort online services, but also social media platforms. And they were wanting to identify people who were seeking them out. But also part of this operation, the detectives were trying to identify adults that were also trying to solicit children. The undercover detectives then communicated online with the Johns and the suspects before meeting them at the location where they were actually arrested. Now let's get into the 4 Disney workers that were arrested in this operation. We're going to start off with Xavier Jackson. Now, it's very strange that I was reading last year's article and I got kind of close to the details, because I learned in that article that last year there was a lifeguard that was actually arrested and he worked at the Animal Kingdom Lodge. This year, Xavier Jackson was arrested. He's a lifeguard at the Polynesian Resort at Walt Disney. I mean, again, this is wild, okay? Because you think that you're going to a resort to have fun with your family And then little be known that there is a lifeguard that is perusing through kids and through, people in general, but also that these kids are in bathing suits and they think that they're safe in an environment. Take a listen to what Sheriff Judd had to say about Xavier Jackson.
That would have been a grand slam if we'd only gotten 3. Then there's Xavier Jackson. He's 27. He thought he was chatting with a 14-year-old, and he sent photos of himself doing things that's totally inappropriate. He did not travel, so once again, the Orange and travel to arrest him, where he was charged with 3 counts of harmful material and 1 count of unlawful communication. Oh, did I mention that he just happens to be a lifeguard at the Polynesian Resort for Disney? You think there's a few children around there? That's right. I didn't stutter. He was a lifeguard at the Polynesian Resort for Disney and was bragging about that. So we were able to arrest 4 predators in this operation. This is huge. 4 arrests of this magnitude in a week is simply remarkable.
The latter 3 Disney employees, one was a restaurant worker at a restaurant called Cosmic Restaurant, and then the other 2 were Disney IT workers, one of them being only identified as an IT worker, and then the other one a software developer.
But let's move on. These guys weren't predators, but they all have something in common with the last arrest. They work for Disney. So you have 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘲𝘀. He's 24. He lives in Orlando. He thought he was coming for sex. He's been a Disney employee for 4 years, and he works at the Cosmic Restaurant in Tomorrowland. Except now he is in the county jail if he hasn't made bond yet. And then there's 𝘱𝘰𝘮𝘬𝘀. He's 27. He's a software developer for Disney. He's worried because he's here on a work visa from India. He thought he was coming to have sex with 2 ladies. Surprise, once again, undercover detectives. Then there's Ralph Lease. He's 45. He lives in Winter Garden. He's an IT employee for Disney. He's been there about 4 years, and he's married. So I'm sure Disney's not pleased. I bet his wife's not pleased, but we're pleased that we arrested him.
So I want to address that this also isn't being talked about, but it's pretty relevant to the Disney theme of things. There was another guy that was arrested, and he actually was a worker at Fun Spot. And this was another amusement park in Florida. But one of the most notable arrests in all of this that I don't see anybody talking about is an arrest on a retired judge from the Chicago area. His name is Daniel Peters. Daniel Peters is a retired judge from Cook County, that is the Chicago area. He's also retired from the Cook County Sheriff's Department, worked as a special assistant in legal affairs, but also get this, he was a director of professional regulators. Talk about all the irony in the world. And again, these people look like everybody. They come from all positions, even noble ones. Take a listen to Officer Judd.
Then we have Daniel Peters, 66 years old. He thought he was coming for a girlfriend experience, kind of a date. He went on an escort site. Oh, can I show you the other picture of Daniel Peters? This is the Honorable Daniel Peters, who is a retired judge from Cook County, Illinois, or the Dishonorable Judge Peters from Cook County, Illinois. And when we were doing our follow-up investigation to validate all of this, what did we find out? He also retired from the Cook County Sheriff's Office, according to him. That's right. He said he was a special assistant in legal affairs, and he worked, are you ready for this, in the Office of Professional Regulations, where he was a director. You're kidding me, right? No, I'm not kidding you. As my old daddy would have said, that's a known fact. He said, quote, I've been on the other side of this. Well, I'd like to ask him today, so which side do you like best? Now that you have been the prosecutor, you've been the judge, you've been at the state attorney's office, and now you're the defendant. So we locked him up in the county jail. He says he lives in Palos Hills, Illinois. He requested an attorney. Well, Judge, you need an attorney. You got problems. He went to the jail in Polk County.
So very coincidentally, I wanted to bring this to your attention. Recently, the Florida legislature, they passed a bill called the Don't Say Gay bill. I wanted to go through that just to educate you guys about what this is. And then we're going to talk about a very ironic situation of Disney workers and staffers staging a protest. So I'm actually going to go to CNN to see what their explanation to this bill is, because I love to see them seethe, but I also want to see what their language and what their verbiage is pairing up this explanation. So what they're passing in Florida, says CNN, in their quest to become a party of parental rights, Republicans in Florida and other states are attempting to muzzle discussion of gay and civil rights in school. Okay, wait. So by teaching children things beyond sexual education, and I'm talking about like anatomy, like, you know, if you give your child permission to learn about that in school, I think that that's enough. You know, you're talking about the anatomy, what happens, and, you know, the consequences and all of that, what can happen, diseases. I think like substantial education for like maybe junior high is okay if given that their parents are okay with them learning about that. But you're talking about elementary kids learning more than that. They're learning about sexuality. You know, I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen them too, TikTok teachers that are talking about, you know, their pronouns and getting mad that their pronouns are not said correctly. You know, teaching children that it's okay to touch themselves. I'm not kidding. The stuff is out there. Okay, so this is more than just birds and the bees type stuff. So when CNN is over here saying and dubbing this as like it's a gay and civil right to teach this type of stuff in school, clock that. All right, continued. One bill is awaiting the signature of Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, titled Parental Rights in Education. Has been dubbed by critics Don't Say Gay bill because it seeks to ban discussion of gender and sexuality issues in younger students. Okay, wait. So pause. All right. And I also want to clock here at the very beginning. I should have said this, but I love the way that they put quotations over parental rights in their quest to become the party of parental rights. Like, what is that supposed to mean when you emphasize that in that manner? You know, parents should have rights. Parents should have a say in what their children are being exposed to in their school and in their education. So they're complaining, what seems to be in an undertone by CNN, that they're banning a discussion of gender and sexuality issues with younger students. Now, if you really expand on what the issues are, you know, you see things like, you know, you're not this gender, you're that gender, or it's okay for you. You know, basically these teachers are becoming secondary parents to the the students with their ideology, and parents want to have a say in that. It continues, another bill that passed in Florida Senate on Thursday would prohibit instruction that says certain races or sexes are privileged or oppressed. While the legislation doesn't specifically mention critical race theory, and an academic theory already banned in Florida that is mostly taught in colleges and graduate programs that acknowledges that racism is systemic and institutional in American society. Well, hey, CNN, thank you so much for admitting that, because we all know that nowadays, given I'll just say most universities, they're brainwashing these students. They're not teaching them they're not soiling in the education that they're paying for. Instead, they're getting brainwashed and they're coming out radicalized. So thanks for admitting that this is actually happening in college institutions. But also, to your point, CNN, this is happening in a more advanced stage of a person's thinking. College students, although they're not fully developed, within their frontal lobe cortex, that usually happens in your late 20s to early 30s, maybe even mid 30s. But at least they're a little bit more mature enough to substantiate at least that type of teaching. You know what I mean? Given that it's not right in it as itself, that's even being taught in a place or an institution where you pay tens of thousands of dollars for an education. But they're equating the college institutions to something like an elementary school, and that just isn't the same thing. You see, children in elementary school should be worrying about how to spell, how to sound out a word, how to read with comprehension. There are a lot of things that are very detrimental in a child's developmental stage that ought to be honed in on and not infiltrated with that of teachings of sexuality and, all of these other things. So continued on, it says this new bill, however, is supposed to protect individual freedom, again, with the quotations, individual freedom, like as if that's not a right that we have, or especially for parents. I'm not a parent, but I'm just saying, I would think that parents should have their own rights and individual freedoms to what their children are learning. Once again, it would prohibit Florida's public schools and private businesses from making people feel guilt, anguish, or other forms of psychological distress based on their races, sexes, or national origins. I mean, does that sound... They're making it sound like a bad thing, CNN. This is supposed to ban people from making other people feel guilty or anguished, or go through any psychological distress based on their skin color or their sex. That doesn't sound like a bad thing to me. Okay. So that's what the Don't Say Gay bill is. And I specifically named it from CNN because I just love to hear them seethe in an undertone. But with that being said, you guys know what the Don't Say Gay bill generically, what it covers. So in ironic timing, clocking back to the Disney theme here, Disney staffers and employees are staging a protest walkout. And you would think, when it's something to do with your employer, you would think it's something like, oh, we want to be treated more fairly, or we want more fair wages, something to that matter. But not this. This protest and walkout is specifically protesting the Don't Say Gay bill. This is a page that was started in essence for their walkout and for their, their collaboration, 𝘏𝘶𝘮𝘢.com. And in the headline, you can see it says, Disney do better walkout. And this is their explanation for what they're trying to do. The Walt Disney Company's TWDC LGBTQIA+ community and their allies are determined to take a stand against TWDC's apathy in the face of the bigoted Don't Say Gay or Trans bill put forth by the Florida State legislature. The recent statements and lack of action by TWDC leadership regarding the Don't Say Gay or Trans bill have utterly failed to match the magnitude of the threat to LGBTQIA+ safety represented by this legislation. As a community, we have been forced into an impossible and unsustainable position. How this affects children? This affects children in their school. What are you talking about? We must now take action to convince TWDC to protect employees and their families in the face of such open and unapologetic bigotry. Starting this week, March 14th, which has already started, we will begin a series of collective actions together in order to make our voices and demands heard, with an exclamation point. So the first question that I have is, if this bill affects school children, how in the hell are grown adults in that community being targeted and being oppressed? I'm just asking, just wondering, genuinely curious about this, because this is more so about a fight to keep children pure and innocent and not infiltrate their thinking so early on about sexuality. Kids should not be thinking about sexuality in general, okay? Again, I repeat, in school, they should be thinking about or learning about very generic things like sounding out words, spelling, comprehension in general, not, you know, do you think that you're going in this sexuality or that sexuality? Like, that's impending on their learning. They should be learning basic things. That should be more adultic. Adults should make those decisions. Adults, when you become an adult and you want to explore sexuality, you know, hey man, I can't stop the world. But when you're doing this to children, this is a whole different discussion. So they made a whole Twitter page here. And on their Twitter page, it's at Disney Walkout. You see that they have some rhetoric already laid out. We'll just go through a few. It says, how do I fully support my child who is non-binary/lesbian and show up to work for a company who gives money to people who actively hate them just because they are who they are? I'm going to guess this is written by a parent who works at Disney. Here's a quote here. The best way to eliminate a group is to demonize them. Yeah, these are Disney employees, guys. The best way to eliminate a group is to demonize them such that their disappearance is seen as an act of justice, not discrimination. Imagine everyone you encounter all day long telling you that you are not real and that there is something fundamentally wrong with you. Being consistently invalidated takes a toll. 40% of trans and gender non-conforming people have attempted suicide. So they continue on with this rhetoric and a lot of these graphics that they've made themselves. But yeah, they're very, I guess we'll say, passionate about this. Now, the thing that I just have to say about this is, what does it boil down to, right? You know, I know we started talking about this very ironic situation happening at the same time where people from Disney who worked at Disney are now charged with intending to have sexual activity with children. But where does it start? It starts at grooming. It starts at indoctrinating children to a point where you're making children think that this is okay. Like, this is a normal childhood to think about sexuality and to, you know, normalize this type of thing. But the other side to this is, why is the LGBTQ whatever community, why are they fighting so hard for children to learn this stuff in school? Because when you blur the lines, will it come up to a time where, I know that not all LGBTQ people are like this. I know that they're not all like this. In fact, I've had some that outreach to me and told me how ridiculous this all is. But for those that are on the far left spectrum that think that this needs to be a normalized acquired thing in our society, where does it come to a point where the lines are blurred and this actually becomes a sexuality? Okay. This has actually been propagandized. It has been platformed as a sexual preference. And while that is on a fringe minority's agenda, they speak the loudest. So, I know that was a lot, but I thought that all of that was quite ironic and coincidental timing. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you guys. I will talk to you in the next video.